The big difference between creating traditional art and digital art is that you can simply hang up the canvas once you're done with your piece, but you can't really do the same with digital work. It just doesn't work the same way. Unless you print it. If you're watching this video, you're most likely trying to find a way to print your digital work to either distribute it, for example, as gifts, or to sell it, or you are finding ways so you can hang up your own art, for instance, in your own apartment. If you're in none of these two categories, honestly, let me know why you're watching this video because I can't think of a third category. Today, I want to show you how I print my digital art, or rather how I prepare it for printing. If you're as confused as I was back in the day about this whole process, then I got you. I was the same. I was very confused in the beginning. I have gained a lot of experience since then. I have tried around. I have made my own learnings. I've printed some stuff in my apartment. There are multiple art pieces of mine hanging around, be it as a canvas, be it on normal paper. I have prepared gifts for family and friends like this. I have made stickers this way, so I do have some experience now. Nonetheless, this is all just based on my own research and learning, so I am not perfect when it comes to this. I am just showing you the way I do it and my process when it comes to this. If there are better ways, if you have tips or advice on how to do it differently, or maybe I'm wrong about something I'm saying here, feel free to tell me so in the comments. I'm still trying to learn more about this. I mostly use Photoshop for prepping my digital art for printing, which is also why I'll be guiding you through that program specifically today, simply because I've had the best results with that so far and I know that it provides the features that I'm looking for. But feel free to share your experiences in the comments or whatever suggestions, programs you have in mind. And without further ado, I'd say let's get started with the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's go. Let's start with one thing that you gotta pay attention to from the very beginning when you're already setting up your canvas for drawing, because there's hardly a way to fix it later as far as I know, which is DPI. I recommend to paint with a canvas that's set to 300 dpi right from the start, simply to be on the safe side when it comes to printing later. I've had the experiences that printing service providers will usually ask for 300 dpi, so it's kind of the industry standard, at least for the stuff that I'm printing. DPI stands for dots per inch. You might also encounter the term PPI, which stands for pixels per inch. This means how many dots or pixels fit into a 1 inch long line. So with 300 dpi, you'd have 300 dots on a line that's 1 inch long. If you take a square inch with 300 dpi, you'd have 300 dots vertically and 300 dots horizontally, filling a 1 square inch area. I could explain this in much more detail. There are a lot of misconceptions also when it comes to DPI, and I'm not a pro myself. All of this comes from my own research, but I'm gonna try to keep it simple and to the most important stuff for you when it comes to printing. At the end of the day, I like to remember it this way. The higher the number, the higher the detail that can be visualized on the same area. So the higher the number, the higher the quality, but also the higher the storage that you will need. So what DPI value do I need, or where do the 300 come from? Well, the DPI value you need depends on what product you're trying to print. And usually you will see that you are asked for 300 dpi, or artists and other people will recommend 300 dpi, as I am now, because all of the usual printing stuff that's like at arm's length to look at, that's not too big, like t-shirts, magazine covers, books, or even most of my art prints that I hang up and that I have printed, those fall into the 300 dpi category. If you go a bit bigger, and if it's looked at from further away, like tapestry or carpets, or maybe even some bigger canvases, honestly, then 150 dpi might already be sufficient. If it comes to big billboards and stuff like that, you might even go as low as 12 dpi, but due to all of this, that's why you will usually encounter 300 dpi. Okay, let's say DPI check, you work that out. What's the next thing to pay attention to right when creating the canvas to draw on? The next thing would be the canvas size. Make sure to not have it too small when you're drawing, because later the print quality might be worse if the print is bigger than your canvas size. If in the end you have created pieces that are smaller than the desired print dimensions, there are ways to deal with that, and I will come to that in a second. Okay, that was all the stuff you could do when you were still preparing the canvas or while you're drawing. Let's say you already have your final piece and now you're in the stage where you say, I want to print it. What are the steps now? And this is where we actually keep talking about the canvas size. Printing service providers will oftentimes provide you with a printing template, at least that's my experience so far, and then you can import that into your canvas. It might have something like a cropping area, which means this area will be cropped off because it's going to be like a flap behind the canvas or something. Then you might have the actual visible area for the piece with its exact dimensions, and then maybe there's like a safety area around it. Keep this bleeding area in mind in case there's some cutoff due to deviations in the actual printing process, just to make sure that no actual information or important visible stuff is cut off. That sort of printing template you might get. You can import that into your canvas, and you will also usually get the information which dimension this final document will need in the end and what other sub-dimensions will be inside this canvas. But the information you will need now is the maximum dimensions of the piece. So if there's like an area that's going to be cut off, that is still part of your dimensions. So even if the actual piece that will be printed in the end, the visible area is smaller, your document might be a bit larger because of all these safety areas and cutting off areas whatsoever. So I create a canvas in Photoshop that's based on the maximum dimensions needed for the document for printing, and I set it to RGB at first. You will understand why later. Now you can also already drop the printing template onto that canvas so you can align your stuff there later. Then I import my actual image illustration that I want printed separately into Photoshop. Now it's very likely that your image isn't the exact size that you want it printed at. Maybe it's like 3:4, but you need thin A4. There might be slight deviations, maybe there are bigger deviations, so now we are adjusting the size. We are staying in the tab where you have imported your actual image into Photoshop or whichever program you have. Then I go to image size and change the width and height to the actual dimensions needed for the final print. So if I want to print in thin A4, I will enter the dimensions for thin A4 here. Just make sure that the relation stays linked. Now it's possible that the ratio doesn't exactly fit, so maybe I'm setting my width to like 21 centimeters and now the height is too short. In that case, I adjust the height instead to the required number, and now the width is maybe a bit too much, but that is no problem. At least both of these measures are at least the dimension I need. Now, very important, if you're upscaling your picture, meaning you're making it bigger than the original canvas size was before, I want to keep as much detail as I can, of course. So I check resample and choose preserve details 2.0 usually. That way it gets scaled up by keeping the most of its quality as possible. I usually don't reduce noise. It's never perfect, of course, because we're creating detail that is simply not there, but I've made good experiences with that function so far. It's the best way I've found so far if your pieces are too small, which a lot of my pieces were. I haven't really scaled down paintings yet, I think, but if you need to do that, you would probably want to use bicubic sharper reduction then. If you're using a printing template and prepared that separate tab, you will now export your image, import it into the other canvas that we prepared, or you will just copy and paste it into there. If after upscaling the picture doesn't fit perfectly, maybe there is a bit too much that's like cut off, you can now decide which part will be cut off. You just move it around to your liking so that it's centered, maybe whichever part is expendable, I guess, or you will fit it into the template, I don't know, depending on the template you have. You can now also edit stuff like if you have a cutout area or like the canvas sides or something, and you just want to make it the same but blurred or mirrored or just a plain color or something instead of white. That is something you can do in this step. Check if there is a safety area, so you might want to pay attention to that when resizing your image in the prior step and then adding it to this canvas. Or a simpler way, if you didn't receive a printing template from the printing service or whatsoever, then you can just stay within the tab where you imported your artwork, where you already resized it, and then you would just head to image, to canvas size, then you can set it to the actual printing size, and you can use the anchor below to decide which area is going to be cut off if it doesn't exactly fit the measures. The dot is what's going to stay and the empty part is what's going to be cut off. At first we've talked about what to pay attention to when creating the canvas or while drawing, like the whole prior step. Now we've talked about the size topic, how to rescale, how to upscale, how to downscale, how to prepare the actual size you need for printing, and now let's talk about colors. First and foremost, you need to know what color modes to use for what. I know this can be a scary topic, but I got you, no worries. I'm gonna try to give you as much as I know about this, as much as I learned, while staying as simple as possible. Color mode simply means how colors are mixed to display the colors you see. The two main color modes there are CMYK and RGB. As the acronym suggests, RGB uses red, green, and blue. That's funny because every digital screen consists of many pixels, and each pixel contains 3 even tinier lights in, you've probably already guessed it, in exactly these 3 colors. All 3 of these colors combined, so basically all 3 of these lights glowing, will create pure white, and the absence of these 3 colors gives you black. This means that you create colors by mixing these lights with their respective brightness. That's also why it's called additive mixing. So it's no surprise that RGB is generally best for digital work. CMYK, on the other hand, uses cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, since they were found to be the best primary colors for printing. But it says K here. Shh, it's black. Trust me. The fun thing is the mixing here works kinda the other way around than with RGB. The paper is usually white to start with, and adding all 4 colors darkens it until you get a pure rich black. As you probably already guessed it, this mode is best for printing. It's called subtractive mixing because it creates colors by absorbing light through ink. That is also why its color range is much more limited than RGB. Colors outside of the CMYK gamut or very high contrasting or neon colors simply cannot be reproduced in print, which is such a shame. So hold up. What if you drew your piece digitally and now want to print it? Like, you were using and are using a digital display after all, but also want a printed product. That's exactly the dilemma I found myself in. To be honest, I don't have a just do this answer for you. If you want to print, the best you can do is create your canvas directly in CMYK so you don't have any issues later. That, however, restricts your color palette from the start, even if you're also sharing it online, and I don't like that. If you know that's what you need, go for it. I know there are multiple artists out there that always just start straight up in CMYK. I prefer to create my pieces in RGB. Back in the day, I didn't think much of printing at all, so most of my pieces already come in RGB, but I also like to use most of them digitally. I like to share them on social media, to have them in my digital portfolio. I add them to my videos, and I love using strong and bright colors, so I feel the need to keep doing it that way. But what about printing then? Well, what I do is that I convert my piece to a CMYK color profile. Most printing services usually demand a PDF in CMYK. If you send them RGB, they will oftentimes just convert it themselves. It's usually implied, even if not written, that they need CMYK. So I import my piece into Photoshop, I head to Image, I hit Mode, and I select CMYK Mode. You gotta make sure that your file is one layer, or else you will now be asked to merge them. You will get a message telling you to which CMYK color profile it will be converting your image to. Basically, there are different color profiles for each of the color modes due to the varying capabilities of the devices and different physical conditions. For me, it's already the right one here, but if you need to change it, you would head to Edit and Convert to Profile. I use the ICC color profile by the ECI based on the ISO norm 12647-2 using Fogra 39. That is the one I use, which is pretty standard apparently in the industry. So to be sure, check the requirements of your printing service. They will often have an information which exact color profile they need, and if you adhere to that, you will likely get the most accurate color results in the end. A lot of times they will also provide the color profile as a download. If you don't have any info on which CMYK profile is needed, you can use any, I guess, or I'd actually recommend using the ICC 1.2 since it's used as an industry standard, particularly in Europe, but also globally. If you have Windows and you've installed the file, you can just right-click on it and just hit Install Profile. If you don't see the profile yet in Photoshop, you might want to restart the program after installing, but then it should appear there. You select it. To be honest, I don't really know about all the other functions, I just keep them like this. To simulate your printing results as closely as possible, you will want to do a soft proof. Even if it's not necessarily 100% accurate, since there are multiple factors influencing printing, it's a good way for a preview of the colors and the details. You would go to View, then to Proof Setup and Custom. Select the right color profile that you want to simulate. In my case, it's the ICC one. Then check Simulate Paper Color and Preview to see the simulation, which is based on classical white paper. With that, your colors should be ready to go. Once I've completed all these steps, I send my pieces into production. I have tested a few printing service providers here in Europe that I'm not gonna name because I don't want to explicitly advertise them, but one fun fact maybe, I have also tried one of these local drugstores in Germany where you also can do printing services. I have simply uploaded my pieces there online in the correct size after upscaling whatsoever or just cropping it so that there's no artificial scaling, lowering the quality in that program later. I didn't need a printing template to cut it to or to like adhere to bleeding lines, zones, etc. I just used the same ICC CMYK profile, and honestly, I was surprisingly happy with the result, and the pictures are now hanging in my home and are ready as gifts for the people I love. So yeah, I just recommend trying your best with some online providers or maybe even local ones that you have in your area. I hope you found these tips helpful. If you did, please let me know in the comments, or if you have any other advice based on your experience, or if you can recommend other programs with the same functionalities, maybe better prices, whatsoever. I was simply guiding you through Photoshop because that's the one where I have the experience in at the moment. I am not a pro at all of this. This is all based on my own research, experience, and learnings, simply the way how I do it. Comment down below if you found this helpful. I really hope so, since the video was a lot of work. Don't forget to like and subscribe, check out the Discord server, and with that, bye!